romantic notions of having a cabin in the woods is self-sufficiency or living off the land. And that includes using trees. As soon as we realized that we needed to rebuild parts of our deck, the first thing I thought was, I want to use my own trees. But harvesting your own construction material is really intimidating, because what if you do it wrong? What if it rots or splits or twists? Ugh! So the first thing I did was do a lot of Googling, and I ran into something I'd never heard of before called moonwood.
He mentioned how we should only and solely use wood that was harvested at its best. The idea is to only harvest wood when the sap levels are at its lowest in winter, but most importantly to do it solely during the waning moon. It turned out that this moonwood, as he called it, was more resistant to fungus. It dried faster and was more resistant to fire. And most of all, it was harder and stronger, with no tendency to swell when exposed to moisture.
Something to do with circadian rhythms and sap being pulled up or pulled down or whatever. I don't really understand it, but it was worth a shot.
So as I was researching moonwood online, I found out that the Japanese believed in moonwood. They would not only cut their trees on the full moon, but they would leave the bark on, leave most of the crown, and they would leave some branches, and then they would hang it upside down. So the natural capillary action of the bark and the tree that would pull the moisture to the crown, then gravity and the capillary action should pull all the moisture from the tree into the crown and into the few little branches. Then after it's aged long enough, you cut off the branches in the crown and all of the sap goes with it. We'll see if it works.
I hunted around our property to find a tree that was tall enough, thick enough, and straight enough to hold up our deck. I quickly found out that while I do have all of the tools and know-how to fell a tree and cut it up, harvesting lumber from out in the woods is a different story.
We got movement. Oop.
Man, I need a tractor. I definitely do not have the heavy machinery it takes to lift a tree onto its head, but I found a steep slope that was kind of out of the way on our property where I could let the tree sit at a pretty good angle for a year. What you may not realize about a full tree-sized log is that they weigh a lot. Maneuvering these things around is really quite dangerous. Don't do what I did.
Balls.
Eventually, I got the log secured in place with its stump end well above the crown end where it could sit and age for a year. During that year, we made the decision to go ahead with our deck project, which you already know about. If you haven't seen the previous videos, click the link in the doobly-doo. I knew I was going to need to peel the logs, which is to remove the bark and get down to the good wood, and I knew I would need some sawhorses that were up to the task. I had some spare lumber, and I did a little bit of whiteboarding.
Okay, 39 divided by parentheses cosine 20 degrees close parentheses equals 40. That can't be right.
The sawhorses are made with a V shape at the top so that I can turn the log without it rolling off, because you have to get all of the bark all the way around. I discussed my plan to use my local harvested log to hold up the deck with my contractor Andrew, and he thought it was a great idea. But for these other two logs that actually hold up the roof of the house, he said maybe we should get some from the log house company down the road. So that's why these two logs that support a lot more weight look a little bit different. Once the deck project was actually underway, Andrew helped me get the moonwood log down off the hill and up onto my sawhorses with his skid steer. Man, I need a tractor. Now, as with most of our projects, I had no idea what I was doing, so I probably made some mistakes to begin with. After a few false starts of trying to do the wrong things with the wrong tools, I figured out that debarking and shaving the log in one step with a good sharp draw knife is the way to go. It takes a little practice and a lot of elbow grease, but I got it done.
So that's the second one of these that I found. There's little pockets of sap in there. So maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, I don't know.
After getting half of the log clean, I twisted the log in my cool new sawhorses, which promptly broke.
Well, nuts.
I tried and tried to get this big log back up on the sawhorses and just couldn't do it. Man, I need a tractor. Fortunately, Andrew left the keys in his skid steer, and I called him up and he was fine with me just using it. After Andrew and I hammered out the final plans for the deck, it turned out I needed 2 logs. Ugh. There is no way I could take another year to moonwood another tree. Andrew just lives a couple of alleys over, and he's actually clearing his own property and collecting logs to build his own log house. And he offered me one of his. So now I was peeling a second log, and this one had been standing and alive 2 weeks ago. I don't know if it was the warmer temperature, the fresher log, or the fact that I finally had some experience, but peeling the second log went much faster. Interestingly, this fresh log had just as many sap pockets as the one that had spent a year standing on its head. So much for moonwood. With the logs all cleaned up and ready, Andrew notched them out with a chainsaw to fit the lower deck. Andrew's crew got the logs up and into place. We plumbed them up and we temporaried them with some scrap lumber until later when I could finish the upper deck project and tie that into the new logs. Now I know I finished the last video with a teaser about what are we going to do with this unfinished upper deck. Well, at the end of this video, what are we going to do with this unfinished upper deck? I guess you'll have to subscribe to find out. We'll see y'all next time. Man, I need a tractor.